Welcome to the desert of the real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tom Suri, and this is Zero News on another wonderful day of revelations from Boris Johnson and all our other friends in the mainstream media, which continue not to do their jobs. Anyway, I'm not here to moan too much today. There's a guy, you may know him and you may not. We're in quite close YouTube circles, but not necessarily the same ones. A guy called Vindicator, who's had a channel. He's had multiple problems with censorship, but those of you who know him will know he's a straight shooter, good guy, and someone, you know, who I know I've said this and been wrong before, but I've also said this and been right. Who I kind of look at and think, you know, this is kind of people we need to help us going forward. So I wanted to just, because we haven't had much communication before this interview tonight, and it was done very impromptu, and thank you to Vindicator for taking this last minute notice. But yeah, so I'm going to be kind of learning with you a little bit more about him. So let's bring him on. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No, welcome to Zero News. Welcome to Zero News. So how do you want me to address you, by the way?
You can call me Dave, or you can call me Vindicator. I don't mind.
Okay.
I think people know my name, really. So.
Right. Okay. I'll call you Dave. Okay. So obviously, like, you came into my site a couple of times. Probably around maybe Dover, because I remember Busker sent me a link or two. But it was also before that, and I remember thinking that you were pretty much a straight shooter. One thing that like I said to you before we came on, I don't watch a lot of other people's videos, so I haven't seen loads and loads of content. I've seen bits and pieces, but I kind of felt like you were ex-military.
Not ex-military. I did, well, you kind of could call me that. I did territorial army when I was 18 and that sort of thing. And then I moved on to private security, which was close protection.
Right, yeah, I remember seeing something you were talking about the SIA stuff, which, well, we'll come back to a little bit later on, but it was an interesting video I was watching that you did. So when did you first, I don't know how to put it, join the movement, come on YouTube? Did you have a place before YouTube, or did you start out on YouTube? And how did you manage to get, because it's really hard to get to 1,000, isn't it? How did you do that? Where did you come from?
Believe it or not, I've been on YouTube since the very beginning. I think it was beta testing on YouTube.
Right.
When was that? I always forget.
Oh God. I couldn't actually tell you, to be honest, off the top of my head.
I think it was around 2005, or was it late 2004, 2005?
Let's have a look. But yeah. Sorry, carry on. But I got a little bit. Could you turn the volume of my voice down a little bit? Your end. It's feeding back through your mic.
Do you want me to swap to my headphones?
If you've got them, that'd be brilliant. It's an unfortunate little problem that we have.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you sound great.
That's great.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Hey everyone in chat, by the way, good to see you all. Yeah, so sorry, so you've been on since the start, so you've been releasing videos since the start.
Yeah, but unfortunately, YouTube and censorship go hand in hand, even way back then, because before it was YouTube's terms of service, it was the misuse of the DMCA. Before that, it was false flag. Yep. It was false flagging. So
were you? Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
No, please carry on, because I didn't mean to interrupt you then.
I probably lost about 20 channels since I've started.
Wow, okay.
So I always got to like get really big, then all of a sudden I got to...
How the hell do you keep coming back? That would just soul destroy me.
Because I always said there'd always be a Vindicator channel on YouTube, no matter what. And I I've got to admit, this last time, and we were talking before we came into this, that I was like ready just to throw in the towel. I was like, I'm done with YouTube.
Yeah.
Because it just got too bad. It's like every time you get to a certain amount of subscribers, they just like cut you dead. Like Busker, they started throttling back my channel, and I could tell they were doing it because traffic just went dead all of a sudden.
Yeah, and did you have the unsubscribing thing happen?
Oh yeah, I was getting unsubscribed by like,
and it was exactly the same numbers of unsubscriptions every day.
Yeah.
People don't believe you. I think they think you're trying to make it. I mean, we know that there's going to be a turnover, and some people are just going to unsub.
Yeah.
But YouTube's own analytics let them down because they show patterns of quite obvious throttling and behaviour. So you've had it. Sorry, go on.
And I was doing feedback with my subscribers. I was asking them, I said, "Are you getting notifications for my videos?" And they said no. A lot of them weren't getting notifications either. Even when they pressed the bell. Even when they pressed the bell, they weren't getting notifications.
Yeah. It all means kind of. I mean, if you press all those notification things, you've got more chance of getting one. But it doesn't guarantee it. It's why every time I put out a video now, it's why people have criticised me for having long intros. But the reason for it is I'm sharing it on all the platforms to let people know it's even there. The other thing I didn't know is if you let out, I think it's more than 3 videos in, is it 24 or 48 hours, it then stops notifying any more videos you release.
Right, so, I didn't know that.
Yeah, nor did I. I found it out the hard way. I kept having videos that have low numbers out of nowhere. They were better videos than the ones I've released before, and I didn't know why, and found this out.
Well, the way I was getting around it was to make every video a premiere, because you're getting 3 notifications every so many hours.
That's a good point. I don't premiere enough, but I always feel like when I do a premiere, I always feel like I need to be offering something worthy of the name, and then I don't ever feel like I've done it. Do you know what I mean? So, but so you've been on YouTube since the beginning. But how long have you been? How long have you been sort of actively? I suppose one of the ways of putting it is commentating, partially, and being involved with the movement.
From the beginning, I was a part of the Great Debate community first, which was basically, it was atheists against fundamental Christians in the beginning. Then I noticed a shift, because a lot of people say, oh, this social justice warrior thing was just a new thing. It isn't. I saw it happening way back in probably... Yeah, I saw it happening way back in 2007 when talking about the Muslim was taboo by certain people. That
was when Islamophobia came about, wasn't it? About that time, the name.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure if people were around back then, but the main thing that kicked it all off was Thunderfoot versus Dawa Films. If you remember that conversation that was going on, but that was what kicked it all off. And yeah, I've always been the one that I've got to fight for the truth. And
so yeah, Vindicator always caught out. I caught that out as I got the impression. Hey, Katie, good to see you. Great news, Katie. Great news. All the best news in the world. Sorry. Yeah, the name. I remember seeing your name and then have a look at your vids, and I remember thinking that's exactly what you were trying to do, isn't it? You're really just out to try and find the truth.
Yeah, it wasn't about speculating. It was just using facts to show people that arguments were wrong. And I think that's what YouTube was about way back then. It was like the Wild West. If you couldn't cope with criticism, you shouldn't be on YouTube. It wasn't for you.
I still agree with it now, to be honest.
Yeah, but it was great. It was great back then because you had some really good conversations with people, and people would come into your hangouts and have conversations from the opposition and discuss ideas.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it used to happen on Periscope. We'd have people arguing with us and stuff, but these days it seems to be more the far right that's prepared to do that, and it's like it's a weird situation we find ourselves in because. Okay, if I try and think about serious opponents on the left, just off the top of my head, I'd have to think of an American Sam Harris. I don't know about you. I struggle beyond that to think of somebody I can take seriously. And regardless of differences in ideologies, there's normally someone on the left or whatever that you can say is a sound, decent person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean. Well, I suppose I should start off with that, really, because I bet people want to know what my political compass position is.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I did class myself as a classical liberal when I first came on YouTube.
It's kind of where I see myself, but I'm not really sure. Everybody's giving me every label under the sun, so, but go on.
Well, it's kind of the same with me, but I think over the last, with everything that's happened with the the situation that we're in now, I'm not going to mention what it is because I don't want to get your video censored, but with the situation we're in right now, I think I've slowly shifted towards the right one. I would call myself probably centre left.
Are you talking about regarding the global bastard?
Yeah.
Right.
And I've seen things now where I realise that we're living in a tyranny, because we are living in a tyranny, and people need to wake up to that. It is a tyranny. We have had our freedoms taken away from us from a lie. It is a lie because we've got the evidence to say that it is a lie. And
so how much of it do you think is a lie?
All of it. I think everything about it's a lie.
So what, including that you think there's no virus?
Oh, I think there's a virus, right. But I don't think this is the question I ask myself, right? Go into the situation. And I always do this before I speak about anything. I ask myself this question. If the government thinks there's a deadly virus out there, then why aren't I seeing biohazard bins everywhere? Why haven't the airports been closed? Why haven't the ports been closed? Why aren't I on 24-hour lockdown in my home if they think this thing is so deadly?
There's a lot of contradictions. The data doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know if you watch Peter Hitchens or Talk Radio, but he's been covering this all summer, and with data, he's painted a picture of. Not in fairness, he hasn't proved certain conspiracy theories right, but what he has proved is the government wrong multiple times, and he's proved that the media aren't doing their job with all of this.
They're not doing their job.
Nobody's being critical, not in the way that they should be.
Well, in a free society with a free press, the press would question everything. They would bring up the alternative opinion as well, even if they disagree with it. But they don't do that. There's not one single person that I've seen on the mainstream media that has said, "Well, look at this alternative evidence to what's being said." We talked about this the other day. Everything is fear, fear, fear. There's no hope. There is no hope,
and I've never seen that before. There's
no hope being portrayed anywhere. And you'd think in this situation, like you said, a government would be promoting hope rather than fear.
Yeah, even in a war, even in a desperate war, so it's unprecedented. And this is why I think, what we were talking about earlier on offline, we were saying, do you just leave YouTube in order to have your free speech about all this stuff? Or do you use it as a way of road mapping to videos and content to viewers of the mainstream? And it's a difficult question. Because you want to stand up for your principles, don't you? But
yeah, another question I asked myself was, right, how do I know...
Sorry, wait, I got to jump in, sorry. So you said that you considered yourself a classic liberal, but what changed and where did you find yourself?
I think I've tried to distance myself from what I would consider the left, because the left don't represent my worldview anymore, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there's one person on what I would call the far left that represents me at all, really. I think it's all varying degrees of, I don't know, even.
Do we have a reasoned left anymore?
I don't think we do. I think it's been destroyed, and I think the people on the left are too scared to speak out from fear of losing their jobs, or because we know what they're like. If you speak out against them, then you get deplatformed. You get your jobs taken away from you.
Yeah,
and I think,
trial by Twitter and shaming and
Hey, Busk, how you doing, mate? Oh, somebody mentioned the V, by the way. This is from my favourite film, V for Vendetta, and I love that film because it's so relevant to the situation we're in right now. It's 100%, unbelievable.
100%. So, because how come you only can't? I mean, this may be a bit of a stupid question, but I'm just wondering if there's a particular reason that you came into my radar when you did. If you've been around all this time, because I must admit, I'm still catching up. I'm still learning. There's a lot of people I don't know. But had you started growing more quickly? Had you started getting around? Was it what you focused on? Did you focus on stuff? Because before we come on, you said you felt that we were probably on quite a similar page.
I think what it was for me, I was preaching the preach, but I wasn't walking the walk, if you know what I mean. I was behind the camera, I was telling people what they should do. And I felt, you know what, I can't be like that anymore. So I went to 2 protests, and that's when my channel really started to kick off, because people thought, right, this guy's not just mouth, he actually goes out there and, you know, he tackles the issues that he's talking about. And I always try to be that person.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I mean, it's how we got started. Was you know, going to the demos and. But sorry, continue. Please continue.
I think they're the people that I was talking about were the main people that got my channel taken down. It was Stand Up to Racism, which is an ironic name. Which is an ironic name for them, really, because they're
racist.
They're racist, yeah.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. So it's been the left that's been like trying to community strike you and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I'm like 100% sure it was either them or somebody I shall not mention, if I can mention his name. James Goddard. I think it might have been one of his crowd that didn't like my channel because I was highly critical of him too. Him or
the organisation.
The organisation, because they didn't like what I got to say. Am I right to talk about these people? Because I know what they're like. They just,
like I said to you before we came online, free speech, man.
It was a patriotic alternative, and I was very critical of Laura Towler because they hold her up as this big intellect, and she's as dumb as a bag of cats, really, in my opinion.
It's very easy to sound smart when you're doing a video and editing it all together. That's good, but yeah, you know, I've looked at some of the arguments that she makes, and I always say I would call her, I would take this from Deadwood, a half smart cunt, because she's smart enough to manipulate people.
The thing is, she said that they come out with all this like propaganda about, well, we're not fascists, but then they praise the leader of the British Fascist Party.
Honestly, I mean, I don't know. Maybe one of them will give us an answer if I could be bothered to speak to them. But it seemed to me like when they're on a recruiting mission, they pretend that they don't believe a lot of what they believe. And then when that recruiting's over, they go back to saying that they do believe that. But there's another little part of this story, though, that it's relevant because in the next few days, I'm probably going to be touching on this again. So as we bumped into this now, I've just mentioned quickly, the other mistake that people are making, there's one reason why the ethnos hate Jordan Peterson. It's because he hates them and he knows what they are. What I mean by that is everybody looks at PA as being the center of the ethno world. And that is so wrong. That is such an incomplete view of the dark side of the force.
I think,
and in fact,
people don't realize how fringe they actually are.
Right, exactly, and they don't realize that ethno-national is almost like classifying any other part of the political spectrum, as in there's a spectrum of them. There are multiple groups, there are multiple ideologies in that. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not sticking up for any of them. What I'm saying is they exist. And I think where some people have got into this trap of sort of getting into arguments with PA, would you agree that they've missed the bigger picture with ethno-nationals, and that's that they're a wider group of people?
Definitely.
I'm not saying there's lots more. I don't know, but
me personally, I had a massive issue with them when they were trying to claim they were patriots, and I pointed out several times they're not patriots. They're patriots to Germany, and
yeah, that's true.
And they wanted Winston Churchill's statue to be torn down. The leader advocated for that. Mark Collette.
They want to debate people at times, but how can you debate them when they keep moving the goalposts? As in, they'll say that they support Winston Churchill, and pretty much, well, not pretty much. I've seen them advocating Hitler and everything else, and then when you get them live or you see them in these debates, they claim that's nothing like what they think.
But what I used to do when I used to debate them, they'd always want to talk about demographics. They want to talk about their propaganda. But when you start talking about their policies, which is what was it? Voluntary repatriation. When you start hitting them on that and you start pushing them on that single issue, that's when their whole narrative starts to collapse. Because you say, well, what about if these people don't want to go? How are you going to make them leave? Because that's your problem. And they won't answer that question because they know what the answer is. It's to turn violent. And they know that the minute they answer that question, they lose all support.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm so naive because I remember when I first come across them, I remember them saying, you know, the public. I saw a show of theirs, and they said the public aren't ready for the JQ yet, but once we've done this groping stuff, you know, they'll be prepared. And I'm thinking the JQ. I'm so dumb. The JQ. What's it? Jewish question, obviously, and it took me a little, you know, because I just don't think like that. And I was just like, oh wow. And then I did feel like, hang on a minute, if you're gonna speak like this, at least have the guts to say what you're saying and not JQ, you know. But
Well,
the only thing I will say, how do you feel about a group like that having freedom of speech?
I agree with them. It's like I want everybody that I'm opposed to have their say because this is how we oppose arguments. We have it out in the open. Everybody has a say, and then each side provides evidence, and whichever argument has the strength survives. That's the way I look at it. And if you can give a strong enough argument that they can't defend against, then their arguments obviously rubbish and wrong.
And the other thing as well is if people fall for a rubbish argument, it's kind of on them. You've got to take all of it. Yeah, the way I've always looked at it as well is if you kind of try and outlaw an opinion, which is dangerous territory to be in anyway, you force that into like an underground thing.
Yeah.
And that's
exactly.
what becomes a big cult and grows. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I want to know where my enemies are. That makes life a lot easier. And it's like in America and that, you know, they have channels with raving lunatic Nazis on. Good. You know where they are, they'll tell you. You know, they're proud of it. So you know where to stay away from as well.
Exactly.
But so you've obviously had a lot of debates then with these people.
Oh yeah.
Were they all PA or were they other types of ethno nationals?
There were other types as well, but I found most of them, they were saying, well, we don't believe in that, but when you push them hard, they really did believe in that. They believe the same things. And
do you feel, and this is just a supposition of mine, do you feel that some people have got so angry at the system or whatever you want to call it that they're kind of taking a shortcut and that they don't really believe some of this stuff? Or do you think that I've got that I'm being naive?
But I don't think being naive. I think what PA does is they dangle a carrot in front of people and they say, oh yeah, well, you know, because people in this country are angry. The politicians, the police don't understand how angry people actually are
exactly.
at the minute. And unfortunately, in that environment, that's when extremism is born, in that sort of environment. And I think, well, this is what happened with Hitler's Germany. This is why he rose to power, because all you have to do is when people are angry, you point them at somebody and say it's their fault, and there you go. You've got the beginnings of something pretty nasty. And this is what's happening in this country now. People can't see it. It's maskers versus non-maskers. And it's like...
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, those dirty people aren't wearing masks. They're the reason why you're in lockdown. See? And although it's not as extreme as it was in Nazi Germany, but this is how it started.
I was going to say, I mean, look at how many of us would have believed this time last year that, or maybe not this time, going back a little bit further now, but let's say 14 months ago, that we'd be in this position this quickly.
I never thought I would be in this position, but this has been happening for years. They've been socially engineering people for years for this. They've been putting people.
So I mean, do you think I've got any credence in saying there's a social revolution going on? Cultural revolution, sorry. because things are moving fast, very fast.
Well, this has been in the planning stages for years, hasn't it? This hasn't just happened.
Yeah.
This hasn't just happened.
But it's like I can't explain it. It's like if you look at Hollywood at the moment, if you look anywhere, suddenly it's like everything's sped up.
Yeah.
And this global bastard doesn't seem to slow it down. It seems to sped up even more.
Yeah, well, if you've noticed that they're using it as an excuse for everything. I mean, look at the May elections.
Yes, yeah.
Look,
just like they used to blame Europe. I'm not a Europe supporter, but it feels the same, as in everything's COVID.
Yeah, and look at the way that we've got to suspend the elections in May because there's too great a risk, and it's for your safety. Those words should strike fear into everybody's heart. This is for your safety.
Agree. And today, comply.
Yeah, comply.
I don't know how many times I heard that. Did you hear that today?
Yeah. Have you watched They Live? It's a John Carpenter film.
Yeah. I actually said in my last podcast today that I couldn't remember at first, and I said this reminds me of something, and then I said They Live. It's They Live. It's when he puts the glasses on. Yeah.
Yeah. Comply. Yeah. Stay awake. Obey. Money is your master.
Anybody who saw my last video now will understand why I wanted to speak to this guy, because we're definitely on the same fucking page. So how I'm just trying to get. I think I'm trying to go over the amount of channels that you've had. How the hell do you keep building up over 1,000 so quick? Then have you just?
I'll be honest with you. That was the first time I had over 2,000 subscribers.
Oh no! So you seem to keep getting up to 1,000 pretty quick. What's your channel on at the moment?
It's Vindicator Strikes Back at the minute. Right,
we've got it on the ticker underneath, guys. But obviously, you've got a lot of alphanumeric stuff there. So I've also put it in the description of the video, and those are the places you can find Vindicator, and obviously his YouTube channel there as well. So how many times have you had it taken down recently? What's the score? Because you said when we talked, you don't mind me saying this, that you thought about walking away.
I did. I was like, I'm just done, because I thought YouTube's not the platform for free speech anymore.
But it wasn't just YouTube that you spoke to me about. It wasn't just that. You said you were disillusioned, and there was specific reasons, and I don't know. I don't want to push you on them, but I felt that they were relevant to how a few of us are feeling. Do you remember?
You'll have to refresh my memory.
Okay, I just don't want people thinking I'm putting words in your mouth.
No.
So you basically, you said you felt a bit disillusioned, and I think that you felt that that it was possible, at least, that we needed what Danny Roscoe's been saying, what a few people have been saying, and I'll be honest, I've been late to the party, that there were certain injustices and stuff were happening. People were watching and nobody's doing anything.
Oh yeah, I know what it. Yeah, definitely. I was like, I'm definitely against the protests in London now. I don't think the protests are achieving anything, because the mainstream media is not covering, and in fact they're actually using the protests against people that are down there. They're calling them crackpots and crazies, and that sort of stuff. I really think now is the time for civil disobedience. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about civil disobedience. And we should do what Italy is doing right now. All the restaurant owners, all the pub owners have got together and formed an alliance all over Italy, and they said, stuff this, we're opening. And the minute people decide that, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, agree. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. People don't realise they have the power. We outnumber them.
Right.
Don't forget, right? They govern by consent, our consent. If we take that consent back, they have no power.
Can you just hold that thought 1 second? Please actually hold it, because I tend to forget things. I just want to address something. White Knight, I've got no issue with you. You're a good guy. But when I hear people say that this vaccine is for depopulation and sterilization, then why the fuck would they give it to old people first? Why would you sterilize the old? That makes no sense.
Well,
I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's a bit of I keep seeing this, and it's like, yeah, and I'm pretty sure there are other ways that they could do it, like stick it in your water or putting it in your other medication, or I don't think it would need to be so outlandish. I'm sorry, where were we with the thought?
it's like I was talking to you about this as well when I was seeing people banging the parks chanting freedom, freedom, and that I'm sorry, but this song irritates me. We are the 99%, because when you're chanting that freedom and you chanting we are the 99% while people around you are being thrown to the floor and violently arrested, then your protest is meaningless, because you've got to be willing to shed blood to stand up for your freedom.
It's also right as well. Jenny Roscoe, I think, brought up the subject that it's also embarrassing when you say we're the 99% and then you arrange a demo that's been arranged for months and 600 people turn up.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing because you just feel like, so 3 million of you, or was it 5 million or whatever, used to follow Tommy on YouTube, for instance. And it's like everybody, it's like, how do you tell how many of those people are actually serious? And
I'll say this.
Difficult.
I'm not advocating for violence, but you won't get change in this country until you've got levels like we saw in the poll tax riots back in 1990. Real change happened after that.
Do you think we've gone past the ballot box doing anything then now, at the moment?
If anything is to go by what's happened in America, yes. Yeah. I think that, to be honest with you, and this isn't conspiracy theory or anything like that, this is my purely speculation, I think a lot of the MPs are bought and paid for. And I think the CCP's infiltration of our political system, because this has been proved, we know they're out there, we know this is their goal, they're trying to influence our politicians, not with the ideology, but with greed and power. And they've done it in America. I'm probably guessing they've done it to the UK, because why wouldn't they? Because we are the two biggest players in the world. No offense to anybody else, but we are. If you can influence the UK and if you can influence the USA, then you've got a free reign on the rest of the world, basically. Because historically, we are the two nations that have always stood up against tyranny. And if you control these two nations, then the world is yours.
So, I mean, I know everyone feels this is all very planned. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I do feel like a lot of people would say, "Oh, this is all Boris Johnson." It's like, well, hang on. Remember, this is a global thing, so you have to sort of. But then everybody says it's agenda this and agenda that. And maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But I kind of try and think, well, what can we do? We've got to fight on a certain level. And I don't know how you feel about this. A lot of people say that left and right is irrelevant now, and I don't agree, because I see a lot of this as a battle over two dominant ideologies.
Yeah.
And we call them left and right. We call them whatever, up and down, blue and green. It doesn't really matter. They are the two dominant ideologies. And one of them may suck, and the other one may have some serious issues. But
well, look at what Churchill said about capitalism. It's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah. Something that's been, I don't know what you think of this. Something that was an argument that was presented, maybe not to me, but it felt like it, and that's, that people haven't realised. It was aimed at the left, but people haven't realised just how good they've got it, and we're so used to fighting that they've got nothing to fight for, so they're fighting the smallest battles they can find because they're the only battles they can find, and they're turning things bigger than they should be. But how do you feel about that? Because I don't think there's many of us that would feel like we're not in dire straits right now.
Oh, a lot of us are. I think it's a joke. I said this. I believe I said it. Oh, I said it on Twitter. I said it to somebody. But at the minute, it's a honeymoon period we've got with the lockdown at the minute, because a lot of people are still on furlough. They're getting paid to be off work at 80% of their wages. But you wait until that furlough money dries up and they've got to try and survive off universal credit. That's when you'll start to see the outrage.
They're already talking about a double dip recession today. That's that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
that's the tip of the iceberg.
I think this is why I firmly believe it's planned. I think they want to crash the. Why else would you destroy small business?
So do you believe the global reset?
Oh God, yeah, definitely.
Right.
And I didn't just come to this because I believe in conspiracy theories. I was looking. If you take a step back and you look at all the pieces starting to come together, and you think, you know what, there's a lot of stuff to back this up now. Because they're even talking about it themselves. Great reset. Great reset.
This is the thing: is the new normal. You will have no money and you'll like it.
The thing is,
there is some frighteningly brazen things being done now. This is what's scaring me. Is like they have the contempt now where they don't even hide it.
Should we just call the Great Reset what it really is? Global communism. That's what it's going to be. That's the Great Reset. Is global communism.
Destruction of capitalism, which is halfway there already. And the thing is, I know a lot of people hate on capitalism, but I mean, capitalism isn't a form of government, but it's the fairest system we can find, and it is like we do need resets of capitalism, not the way that they're framing it, but in terms of capitalism is prone to a couple of things. One, that it caps out both ends. And two, that it is like any system open to corruption, and when that becomes too much, the system doesn't work anymore. So
I think this is what's happened. The CCP have taken advantage of the corruption of capitalism. Yeah.
I mean, someone made a frightening point. They said about the attack on Capitol Hill. And they said that Putin and China and all these other countries will be using that footage and telling their people, this is what democracy does for you. It sends you crazy. This is why we don't want it. And I thought, on some level, that's probably true.
So what are your views on Donald Trump? How do you feel about him?
See, this is the thing, right? Is that what I don't like about not just our side, but any side, is that you're expected to toe the line, and I'm expected to sit here and go on about how wonderful Donald Trump is for the next half an hour, and I'm not. I always felt like the Americans didn't take it seriously when they started voting for him, and it was like this novelty thing, and I felt that the worst person they could have put against him was Hillary Clinton, because the last thing people wanted was a politician. And so I felt it was like his election to lose. I didn't, so he's not the kind of guy that I would want to spend my free time with. With that said, I've not seen such a disgusting display from a media that just and an opposition that refused to accept the results of an election, that refused to accept him as president, and that just tied him up in bureaucracy for his entire presidency. And in spite of all of that, he still managed to get the economy into good shape before COVID.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump found himself in a difficult position because, like JFK before him, he tried to go in and fix a system that didn't want to be fixed. And he found that out. He found that out because even his own people turned against him. They stabbed him in the back. And it's so corrupt, the American system. It's unbelievable. They're all taking backhanders from Big Pharma. That they're all like taking big hand. Joe Biden, his chief contributors are the big tech from Silicon Valley. He's even hired.
I think the best thing that Trump could do would be, honestly, to set up the media that we cannot set up ourselves. Look at Parler. They're in a dire straits, really, and it's all to do with the size. The size of they need a leg up. Someone needs to start as a big company.
You know what? Sorry. I think that would be the best thing to do, but not set up his own companies, but pump money into the already existing companies to give them the infrastructure like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Have. And do it that way. But also, if I was him now, I would go full scorched earth and pardon all the enemies of the left. The people they really don't want to speak out, like Assange and people like that, and declassify everything.
Declassify everything. That's actually a wise move. That would interesting. So what do you think about his not impeachment? I wasn't going to ask you about that. What do you think about the social media banning of the president of the free world? What do you think about that?
Well, it's like what people have been saying. If Joe Biden won fair and square, why do you need to censor the president of the United States?
I think a lot of people but some of the arguments I heard were that he can incite nuclear war because he's a madman, because he's the president of the United States.
Yeah, but then we have to look at his track history, right? He's brokered. This is the only president in United States history that hasn't gone to war. He's actually gone to peace. He's broken peace deals all the way through the Middle East.
I think the other thing as well is that there's no consistency there, because when you look at the communist disgusting Twitter messages that have been made by China and other people that have been left there, that are still up now for everyone to view, it's complete hypocrisy. None of these people's terms of service are clear. They are a private platform, which does mean they don't owe you free speech, but they won't become publishers, which is a crafty choice, and they should be made by a government to make up their goddamn mind. Are you publishers or are you not?
I think that was Trump's massive mistake, is not getting rid of their free harbour status. Yeah. Get rid of that, and then just like have at it, you know.
We really need to shake up this whole social media thing so that in the end they're begging for free speech.
Yeah, but I can't remember who it was, but I was listening to somebody the other day, and they were saying like every 250 years there's a big shake up in the way things are done, the way people are governed and stuff like that. And I think we're in that cycle.
You look at in Britain, in the history of Britain, sometimes it's even quicker than that. And the question I've been asking recently, and I don't aim this at anyone, it's just a genuine question, is do the Brits still have the backbone? They still have the DNA. Do they still have the backbone that they've had for 1,000 years of being able to say enough's enough?
Well, they're at the breaking point at the minute, and they haven't done anything yet. I haven't seen, like I said before, poll tax level scale rioting down in London. And this is what I was going to say before. History has shown us that the only way that things change is when cities burn. When cities start to burn, that's when the political class get worried and they think, yeah, we need to put pressure on the MPs so they want to remove Boris Johnson.
Do you know what's scary there about you making that point? I agree with you, but there's a frightening resemblance, not saying from you, but a frightening resemblance hearing those words to the left's burn it down mantra.
Yeah, I'm not talking about.
And I know that you don't mean it like that, but
yeah,
something that Danny Roscoe and I were talking about, there are people that are speaking a bit like that. It even slips out in some of our speech. You know?
This is how I've been feeling lately, right? When I see police officers in London manhandling a 93-year-old man. Yeah. I'm not talking about random riots. I'm talking about forming an army and going down there and removing these people from office. I'm talking about a full-on civil war where we have codes of conduct, where we don't harm businesses, where we don't kill civilians. We just ask the army to stand down, ask the police to stand down and do their jobs and serve the people and remove these tyrants from office. If they don't, then we do it for them.
I don't want to say too much online, but yeah. One thing that we always did in demos past was we may not come forward as aggressors, but we would hold the line.
Yeah.
And that could be very important at stages. And I know that those, whether we've still got those people, I hope so, but I know that the people with that kind of bravery were there. It wasn't a case of going forward as aggressors, but it was holding the line. And we had that kind of bravery. You know?
The protests, when they went down there, they need to have some sort of structure and some kind of organisation. To me, I would have put the veterans on the front lines because they're the ones that are best going to handle that situation. If people start throwing punches,
I think it's difficult because I'll probably upset someone saying this, but it's just a unfortunate fact that on our side of things we're more individualistic, which means more clashes. So I think that the vets have been sorting themselves out over the last couple of years, and I don't know what their current status is. I don't know. Hopefully, they're in a bit of a more harmonious state, and
well,
that's not just the vets. That's everybody.
I move in certain circles, and obviously I've got several veterans. Well, lots of veterans. They're actually friends and stuff. And when they saw that, because that old gentleman, by the way, he was on the beaches of Normandy.
Right. Oh, gee. Okay, I didn't know that part.
So when you see that, that old gentleman fought for our right to have our freedom, and this is what President Reagan said: each generation passes that freedom on to the next one. We are the custodians of freedom. If we don't fight for it or stand up for it, then we lose it. It's only a generation away.
And we're failing right now. We are failing. We are responsible for this. Because this is the thing. We lose this, we have got no one to look at to go, well, it is us that's going to be looked at by kids or whatever else who will say, why didn't you do something?
Exactly.
Why didn't you at least try? And so the question is, do we have that still in this country? I know we have individuals. I know that they're there, and I know that I know that I've been at places where people will hold the line. That was a while ago, though. But do we have that? Do we have that? Because I'm just wondering where the line is with people, Dave.
I think this generation definitely. They've been put to sleep by reality TV. They've become soft. They've been demasculated. A lot of them with media and that sort of stuff. So I don't think we do have that anymore, unfortunately. Because if we did, that when I was in my day, we would have seen thousands go down to London after seeing that 93-year-old gentleman manhandled in the way that he was. And I think it was subject access when that policewoman went after him for just that sort of behaviour. She was a psycho. She had no business being.
That was disgusting. And this is what I mean. We can't just keep watching this as good drama. We need to be involved somehow.
You know what? In every one of these situations, I see, and this is nothing against you or anybody that has a camera, but I see lots of people pointing cameras at them. That's not what's needed in that situation. You need to be physically pulling these police officers off them. You have a right to defend yourselves under the law, reasonable force.
I'll tell you why I used to do what I used to do, and I still would, is because I felt like when I was holding that camera, I'm not a particularly physically strong kind of person, and I felt like I was in my own way. I've never said this before, so it's embarrassing, but I felt like I was in my own way, trying to watch over their shoulder. So if the police fucked with them in any kind of way where I could protect them, I felt like that was the job right then, because in the situations I found myself in, there was always plenty of burly blokes to do that. So and they were straight there, and so don't get me wrong, so was I was prepared to do my part, but I also felt like these brave individuals needed someone on their shoulder, because should the system try and screw them over and try and do them for some crime that they haven't committed, I just wanted to make sure that they were safe in some way. I don't know that they would have been. But
that's another thing that we really need to talk about, because the police force have no oversight. They have no regulatory type of thing over them at all. They've got these huge nebulous powers over people, and they've just got drunk on power. We've seen it. I saw a guy in a supermarket who was a veteran, and they arrested him for having no mask, and they were asking him for exemption cards and exemption certificates. The police don't even know the law.
You can't Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Actually, yesterday I challenged ASDA yesterday, and I went down. I didn't wear a mask. I just walked up to them. The security guard came out, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, you can't come without a mask." And I said, "I'm exempt." And he said to me, "Have you got proof?" I said, "I don't need to give you proof." I said, "The conversation ends when I say I'm exempt." And I says, "Are you refusing to let me enter this shop?" And he said, "Yes." I says, "Right, excuse me, sir, can I have your SIA license badge, please?" I pulled mine out, and I said, "I'm also a security guard, and I've been trained in the Equality Act. And I know that you are now breaching Section 13 of the Equality Act." And I said, "I'm going to report you to the SIA for a breach of their code of conduct, which is very, very serious. They have, in fact, security guards have more oversight than the police force, and you will get your badge. You will get your badge removed if they find out that you've committed offence."
I'm aware actually how much you've got to do, not just to get them, but to keep them.
And people don't realise they have a lot of power in these situations.
Yeah.
Because it made him back down. And you know what? The manager came out to speak to me, and we had a conversation. Didn't get violent. We had a nice, polite conversation. Didn't shove a camera in his face or anything like that. And I said, "You do realise that he can get a £9,000 fine. You can get a £9,000 fine. Not the company, you as individuals, because you're the ones doing the discriminating." And you know what? I went back later. Actually, I went back today, and he came up to me and said, "We've taken the security guard away, and we're no longer going to challenge people on exemption, which they're not supposed to do."
Do you know what? So, there you go. Right, there you go. So there's an example of someone that doesn't need a camera, although a camera would have been cool, but doesn't need a camera, doesn't need adulation, who sees something or reacts to something that he sees as being totally wrong, stands up for himself and gets a positive result out of it, more probably than you expected.
Yeah.
I keep saying to people that they can make a difference just by standing up for a few things. That's a perfect example of it.
It takes one person to start a rebellion.
Yeah.
One person.
And if everybody stands up, like, I understand you can't do it all the time, and some people are in more sticky positions, but you can do something. And whatever you do, if everybody's doing something, it will change things. And coming back to a point you made earlier on, is if the businesses went, F this, and I've already made this point, but if the businesses said, F this, as you said, if the people also said F this, and we're going to support the businesses, and in fact, I won't even go further than that. That's all we need. The government, de facto, would be forced to say, okay, well, it's against the better judgment, but we will have to adopt one of the policies taken by one of the countries that doesn't have a lockdown strategy.
Exactly. I mean, this is what made me think this was all pre-planned, right? Boris wasn't in the loop because his initial plan was herd immunity. He was going to go and do that.
Yeah, and that was gaining momentum when they shot it down.
And all of a sudden, Sage got involved. Massive U-turn.
Yeah.
Sage and the media.
So maybe you've answered the question, because I felt like Boris Johnson changed way back. Not that I've ever. So go on.
Definitely. He was full of energy. He was bouncing about. He was enthusiastic. He wanted to level up the country. And I genuinely think that Boris had good intentions at the start.
He seemed to have his finger on the pulse.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories, but something definitely changed. The circumstances definitely changed about the guy.
I'm not saying he would have been the greatest prime minister in the world. I'm not saying any of that, but he changed. He's
no Winston Churchill by any chance. No way.
But he changed. Something about him just changed, and it wasn't like a greasy kind of change. It's more like, I don't know. It's like a snowflake.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it.
Now, whether this was a combination of Sage bullying him and his new partner, right? She's a proper lefty, isn't she? His partner.
Right.
So whether that has some influence in it, I don't know. Maybe something that the CCP did, and that's just speculation. That's not me conspiring about anything or conspiracy theories or anything. But we don't. know what's going on. I mean, in the background, but something happened that changed his outlook on things.
Agreed. If something happened, because you can just tell. You can just tell every time he's on camera.
It looks drained, and he looks demoralised.
So what's your aim, mate? What's your aim been in the past, and what's your aim now with what you do here?
Just to get the truth out there and boost it. I think we're basically doing what the mainstream media should be doing.
Agreed.
And trying to wake people up to what's going on. And it's like, I like this line from The Matrix, because that's one of my favourite films as well, the first one. It's when Neo was having a conversation with Morpheus, and he's talking about the people that are still in the Matrix, and Morpheus says, they are your enemy. If they're still plugged into the system, they're your enemy. They will turn you in, they will turn on you. And until that people have been woken up, you've got to class as the general public as your enemy until they're awakened, because they are.
Do you feel, and please again always be free, but do you feel that some people go too far the other way? We talked a little bit about this offline, where they'll just go hook, line, and sink it into anything that is the narrative that they want.
Yeah, I think there should always be evidence to back up what you're saying, because it's just speculation. It's that old thing that anything asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Yeah, and it's like, the other thing as well is, like, someone will say, well, look, I can prove it because on Billy Joe's website it says so, and it's like, that's not a source.
But then you say, well, where did he get the information from? What's his source? What's his evidence? You have to question everything. My advice to everybody is question everything. And this is a big issue as well with the Boris Johnson supporters, right? This is the way out my worldview. The minute somebody stops having my worldview or giving me cause to support them, I stop. I don't follow them because I've got some kind of misguided loyalty to them. If they stop providing evidence or start doing things that I don't agree with, then they no longer have my support. I don't go in for like group cult mentality about anybody.
I think we're similar there. I've always said, I support my leaders 100%, and I know they make mistakes, but I also feel it's my responsibility to criticize them, keep them honest. I mean, is there a political party for you out there at the moment?
There's not one. I don't. To be honest with you, Nigel, I want a party that is going to question all the narratives, the vaccine, the lockdown, everything. And so far, Nigel Farage has been very political, isn't he? He's been very political about everything.
Yeah, he is.
He's towing the political line. Well, we don't want that. We want a party that is going to challenge the establishment, not appease it.
So I'm completely transparent with you. I'm a For Britain member, just so that you know where my loyalties are. Otherwise, it would be almost like, I don't know, just a bit disingenuous. But I will say that I've seen them, and obviously talking is one thing, doing is another. But I've seen them change policy based on things like a YouTube chat conversation that brought up really good points, or some of the things that you're talking about now that literally weren't on their agenda to talk about. And then if you bring it up to them and you provide actually not too much, just enough for them to be able to go and research it themselves, they'll bring it up, and they'll make a point of making it an issue. I've not actually had that experience with any political party before. It's kind of part of what won me over.
I think what politicians have forgotten is that they're employed by us, but they are there to serve us, not the other way around. And I think a lot of the parties now, and this is why I'll never vote Labour, I'll never vote Conservative, I'll never vote Liberal Democrat, I won't vote for the Reform Party, because they're all in it for themselves. They're not in it for the people. They don't care about the people.
I think Brexit exposed Parliament as being rogue from its constituents, didn't it?
Oh, they're so far. How can millionaires understand the average Joe that's on minimum wage? How can they? If you've never been through week by week trying to find food to put on the table and stuff like that, how can you actually what's the word I'm looking for? How can you empathise with people like that? How can you understand what they're going through? Which is why I firmly believe This is why we need it.
There has to be a disconnect. I agree. You're in a bubble.
Yeah,
You're in a different type of bubble.
There's got to be a change. There's got to be a change in government where it's not all.
And you talk about hard times as a prime minister. You're talking about very different hard times than you're talking about for us, say, for instance.
Yeah, that's right. I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be a complete shake-up of our political system. Not a House of Parliament, not a House of Lords anymore. Maybe a People's Assembly, where it's people from everyday walks of life that govern. It's not just lawyers. And
I do think excuse my language. I do think a lot of them need to be thrown out of there, and to have a proper democratic setup replaced. And I know that sounds a lot like revolution. I don't mean it quite as literally as it sounds. Well, maybe you do. I don't really know. I don't even know anymore. But I do think that they're corrupt.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think this should be one of the major reforms that happens. Is they're not allowed to have a second job whilst they're an MP. Yeah.
And I just think that any MP that has taken part in the shambles that has been our politics for the last 6-7 years should just retire. Do you know what I mean? Just get out of it, and because we're not going to get out of it while these scumbags are still around. Busker's put a question in, and I thought it was an important question. Have you seen Katie Hopkins is now jumping in as leader of UKIP?
UKIP's dead.
I know, but what's her motive? Why is she doing it? And surely this is a great way of splitting up what already seems to be a tenuous amount of people.
I think these smaller groups that we talk about, they need to get together. They need to put aside their differences and get together and come and form one party. And
it sounded like I spoke to some people at UKIP a while back when Batten had gone, and it sounded like the name was basically what was left and what was valuable about it. But it seemed like, regardless of that fact, they were content to continue fighting over it. So I'm a bit confused as to what it is that. I mean, I know it had a good name at once, but it doesn't anymore. I'm confused as what it is that she's aiming for. She's not leader material in terms of prime ministerial, is she? Just put it that way.
No.
So I'm kind of confused at what it is that she's aiming for. And I'm kind of looking at other efforts that are being made in the movement to do political stuff, and I'm thinking, this just can't be. I don't know. Have you got any insight into why she's doing this, or?
I think it's just for popularity. I mean, it's hit and miss with me with Katie Hopkins. I think she does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
She says a lot of truthful things, but I don't think politics is for her, to be honest with you. I really don't. I think she's good at actually a political commentator.
So do I.
That's where she's
done
really
some great. She's done some great sort of semi-documentaries, which I thought she did really well.
I think the best thing that could happen would be for somebody like Donald Trump maybe to set her up with her own news network or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. But great if he set us all up with one, to be honest with you.
Just throw a couple million at us,
yeah, exactly. We need something like it, especially, I mean, even more so in Britain. I mean, one thing I find incredible is Owen Jones says is incredible, but he has the belief of some, and they're still trying to portray the media as being right wing.
Yeah, it's not right wing at all.
Like, what media are you watching?
Yeah, the thing is, the people on the left are so far left that they think the BBC is right wing. Then there's something wrong because they're not.
Have you noticed this? This is something that is always been prevalent in communism, and it's now starting to happen on our screens. If you're paying attention to Twitter, you'll see it. If you're paying attention to Hollywood, you'll see it. If you're paying attention anywhere, you'll see it. And that is that this phenomenon has now begun to happen. And that is that the left, or far left, are turning on their own side. And instead of just Twitter shaming people in the centre to right, they are now ruining the lives of people on their own side because they're not left enough, because they're not woke enough. This is how communism goes.
What happens, right, is and I'm going to quote something. There's an episode of probably the greatest sci-fi show that ever existed ever, Babylon 5. It was awesome, right? There was an episode, and they were talking about there's this biological weapon, and it was a man. It turned a man in, and they looked for purity. And what happened was eventually these like man-made weapons turned on their own people because they weren't pure themselves. And that's what happens with the left. That they're constantly challenging each other's language because they're not pure. They'll eat themselves. If you put a room full of lefties on their own, eventually they just eat themselves. You wouldn't have to do anything about it.
I agree. They're in a game of catching each other out because they're backwards, because they're not real. It's about how can I project myself as being a really good person.
It's all virtue signal. They're not really portraying who they are.
And it's like, it must be exhausting to be walking around thinking about how to project yourself as the least racist, least bigoted, and it's something that I think it was Orwell said, but it doesn't matter if he didn't. And that is that there's this assumption made by the left that all human beings want less suffering and lots more comfort and no pain in their lives and no suffering, and that this is a universal truth, when there's no indication that's a true. And to bring you back to your favourite film, I think something that was mentioned in that film was, and I don't know if this was exactly why it was written that way, but I took what I wanted to take from it. When he talks about not being able to make the perfect program for human beings, making it too happy, too nice. Yeah. And I felt that there was a truism to that. And the idea that people just want to live in comfort, and that makes, on first pass, you might go, yeah, that makes sense. But when you think about it more philosophically, it's no.
I think what it is, right, this sums it up, right? Human beings are at the best when things are at their very worst.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we need to be. We need to be in a constant struggle to make us better people, to fight for things. If we've got everything that's, it's all nice and sunshine, rainbows and flowers, we can't live in that world because there's nothing to strive for.
Agreed. And that's it, is that people on the left won't accept things like DNA and chromosomes, but you need to, because it helps. If you don't accept these things, then you're denying the fundamental truths about your existence. We know so little about it anyway. Denying the truths that we do know is just a route to unhappiness. It's like accepting the fact that, like, I've always been anti-theist, right? But I also accept the fact that probably because we've been looking at the stars for so long, there's part of the DNA that almost requires it. Some people.
Well, I've always thought, right, what happens tomorrow if an alien ship lands and, that disproves everything that we've ever believed about religion? What happens then? Because it could happen. It's well within the realms, and obviously the opposite could happen. Jesus could materialize.
Well, I could answer that for you quite easily, actually, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's a game that and again, we've got a lot of people that watch that are religious. This is not a hit at anybody.
No, it's not. No, at all.
But it's organised religion I've got the problem with. But it's an easy question to answer because they've already done it before when other things have been proven that say the world isn't 6,000 years old, stuff like this, and that is that. They always try and, whatever revelation science brings, they say, but God must be responsible for that.
I think what we have to learn is, as human beings, it's okay to say we don't know.
Yeah. And so it's very hard to argue with someone that always will inflate the universe to engulf the answer that you give. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As ridiculous as it is that they're doing it, you at the same time can't win against it. You can, in the hearts and minds of people, but you can't. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, you just go around in circles. It's a ridiculous game that gets played.
I think at some point you just have to accept that you won't change people's minds and just agree to disagree.
No,
and carry on.
And I'll tell you something that made me stop and think as well, and it is that when you look at the fall of civilizations, big civilizations, the largest, all of them, they all went through a similar period to what we're going through now, and one of the things that they went through is a loss of religion. and fell into sort of spiritualism. But the point of it being is these were all signs that things were going very wrong. People felt, this is why I wanted out Europe. People don't feel connected to the source of power. They don't feel part of anything. And as much as I may hate it, don't forget as well, there's a lot of people with low IQ. And regardless, high or low, some people truly feel like they need this purpose in their life. Add to that, this is coming from someone who's an anti-theist. Add to that if we'd had a semblance of the church that we would had even 50 years ago, how many mosques do you think would be built in this country?
0.
And I have to say, my complete dismissal of religion may have been a mistake.
I think what's happened is, right, I think because we aren't as religious as we are now, Islam came in and filled that vacuum.
100%. I agree with that. That's why it's the fastest growing religion in the UK.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. People, when you try and explain the problem with Islam to people, I honestly, truly believe they don't get the gravity that we used to believe the way that Muslims do now. Yeah, and because many people don't believe like that now, they don't understand it. When you believe something that truly, then you're capable of anything.
I think what is right, what it is, they say that Islam is probably about 400 years behind Christianity in the way it's perceived.
I think the way I understood it, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, to put it in real simplistic terms, Islam was kind of stolen from the Jews and rewritten. That's how I understood it.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, Christianity went through the Reformation where it became less authoritarian.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing.
It had to.
It had to survive. And I think that's what needs to happen to Islam. And it will happen. It will happen eventually. But we're not at that stage yet. And this is where I've talked to people about this before. I think us in the West, we should have something that's driven like the Prime Directive, where we don't interfere in other cultures that haven't reached the same level as enlightenment as us. We should just get on with it, do your own thing, while we do ours.
Absolutely agree with you, 100%. And to be honest with you, we should have done it a very long time ago. We should have known better a long time ago. I really believe that. Yeah. The idea that you can take a person from a culture where, you settle your disputes with a machete, put them here at 30 years old, and integrate them. I look at that as being wanton negligence.
Well, let's not talk about Islam. Let's say we bring somebody from Papua New Guinea that believes in witchcraft, and you put them in modern day London and say, "Here's democracy. Here's an NHS. Here's food. Now fit in."
Absolutely.
They can't do it because they haven't got that level of sophistication. It's not their fault.
Absolutely. And then the idea from the left is, but it's being kind to everyone. It's like, is it? Because this person's going to end up dead, or he's going to end up hurting someone else and end up in prison. How is that good for anyone? And I'm just sick of this fake kindness.
Yeah. Some cultures are not compatible with our society. That's the fact of the matter.
That's what defines what culture is. Culture is part of what culture is a predictability within inside that culture to understand how your fellow man's going to react to certain things. What stops us killing each other. And
I've had this argument with some ethno-nats, right, when they come in, and I said, because they were talking about the Windrush generation.
Right.
And I said to them, well, they've integrated because they wanted to integrate into our society. They saw our society was superior to theirs, and they wanted some of that. They thought, this is a good way to live. Let's live like this. Let's live like this. But they don't seem to get it. But then they point to people that have just come over from Africa, probably just a few weeks ago, who came from a tiny village in the middle of Africa, where they behead people for stealing chickens. And it's a totally different thing. These people have been in this country for over 50 years.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think that the comparison is ridiculous. The people that have grown up in this country who are my age, that I've talked to, that are black, generally speaking, we've had a very similar upbringing, except for a few major things which you've already mentioned on the show before. And it's opened my eyes up to a few things. But nevertheless, other than that, very similar kind of upbringing to stuff. Especially remember that with Black Van Man. I just felt like we were sort of kind of cut from the same cloth in so many ways. Sorry, go on.
Go on.
No, that was it really, and I just so this comparison is absurd.
Well, I had this conversation with an Earth and that, right? Because they bang on about how indigenous populations have their countries, that it's their country. Nobody else can be indigenous to that land unless they were born there, kind of thing. Or they have, ancestors going back, sort of thing. So I brought up this.
And where is that line drawn, by the way?
Well, this is what I brought up with them. And I said, right, fair enough. I says, I'm Celtish. I'm more or less all Celtish. My ancestors were the Celts, and before that they were the Pict people, the Picts and that sort of thing.
Picts, yeah, I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, get out of my country. And they said, what? I said, get out of my country. I said, you came over with the Anglo-Saxons. You invaded my country. You basically made my population a minority in my own country. You're making the same argument now. Get out of my country. I'm going to offer you voluntary repatriation. Go back to Germany.
They think this is a big joke when we make this argument, but the thing of it is, it's like, how far back do you want to play this game?
Yeah, how far back do you go?
Or do you just want to admit that it is about black and white? Because they say it's not, but they're obsessed with the DNA, and it's like, I don't agree that we're a nation of immigrants. No, I don't. Whoever said that is an idiot. But what we'll say is that we are a nation that has been initially invaded, and also bear in mind that our royal family has virtually exclusively had blood from outside. It's where do you want to? How far back do you want to play this game? Because don't forget, there was a place called Doggerland. Doggerland. That was a bridge between Britain and the mainland.
Yeah.
And that was there for a very long time. That was only destroyed by the last ice age.
Yeah.
By a glacier. And so human beings had come onto Britain, been killed off by weather, come back, been killed off, come back, been killed off. And there's a potential that some of the first ones were actually black. Now it's a bit of a far out theory, so it would need to be proven. But the point of it being is, how far back do you want to play it?
Well, the thing is, right, the last ice age killed off most of humanity. I think there was close to like 30,000 humans left on the planet. So how the hell do you make that distinction? Because we all come from that 30,000 people.
And then everybody who's not African doesn't have... Sorry. The Africans, I think, are the only ones that don't have Neanderthal, 2% Neanderthal DNA. So who is more human?
Yeah.
Who is more... Do you know what I mean? Because technically the Africans are fully human. We got 2% Neanderthal blood DNA in us because of crossbreeding.
They don't understand because they think in all terms have got to be pure. Everything's got to be... There's no such thing as a pure race.
No, there's not. And I also think as well, I think it's an excuse to try and get around... And I could be wrong. I feel it's an excuse to get around the same black and white.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That's why they hate Tommy Robinson. They hate Tommy Robinson because his motto was "Black and White Unite" when he was in the EDL. Yeah. A lot of things that the mainstream media doesn't.
Mainstream media are disgraceful on this because they if they don't want to hail Tommy as a hero, fine, but they should have taken the target off him years ago and put it where it belonged. He's left enough road signs. It's disgraceful, the treatment that he's had compared to what he's done or hasn't done. And it's so disproportionate. I can't think of another case in this country that's quite as bad as his when you consider that he's been done under terrorist laws and all kinds of things. It's a really unique situation. And will there ever be justice for that? And I don't think there will be.
I don't think there will be. I mean, look at the way the BBC just like misrepresented him, and he did a sting on them and just exposed Panorama for what they are.
This is what I will say. The leaders of this, whatever happens, whether it ends up me and you being leaders, I mean, I can't lead my way to the toilet, but whatever happened is my point. The leaders don't get to enjoy the spoils of the war.
No,
not in situations like this. They somewhere or another will pay a price. But isn't it better to stand up and pay that price and know that someone's going to benefit? In fact, a lot of people. It is just to sit down and play it safe so you can eke out your last few years or whatever it is, whilst you watch everything falling down around you and hell for the next generations that they'll never get out of.
To quote Spock, the needs of many outweigh the needs of the one. So,
saying again, the left has turned on. That was a leftist thing. They've turned on. It's funny, isn't it? A lot of people criticising me for liking Star Trek.
I'm going to say this right. Can I just say this before we carry on? I cannot stand Star Trek Discovery. It just irritates the hell out of me.
Oh my god! Don't get me started. Don't get me started. All the men are weak or stupid. It's like it's supposed to be like equality, but you've got all strong female characters, or gay, or transgender, but the straight male strong character is absent in every way, shape, or form, and that's just touching the.
Right, if Star Trek Discovery was a video game, then Michael Burnham would have God mode on. Because it's just like, oh, she's so great, she's so brilliant at everything. Name me one character that stands out in personality-wise where they develop them.
Have you seen the developments with Luke Skywalker and all that stuff? Are you watching any of that?
Oh God, don't get me started on the new Star Wars. Oh, God.
No, but have you seen have you seen the last episode of The Mandalorian?
I loved Mandalorian. Mandalorian is how it should be.
Did you watch the last episode?
Yeah, I did, mate. I loved it. I loved every minute.
So you saw who was in the last episode, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Have you seen the Civil War that started off?
Yeah, because they brought him in to like eradicate all that crap.
It's crazy, and Lucasfilm have just released comics called The High Republic, but it is a SJW themed Star Wars. It's Kathleen Kennedy's last push, and so it's flopped as per, and they're blaming Luke Skywalker for stealing their thunder. It's his fault. It's his toxic masculinity that has killed the High Republic before it got started. Unbelievable.
Right.
So there's a full-on civil war. Gina Carano.
Yeah.
But to people out there who don't know, Gina Carano plays a strong female character that they say doesn't exist in The Mandalorian. She is close to being fired right now for not even really having the wrong opinions, just not agreeing with the ones that people want her to. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah, Cara Dune. Yeah, she plays the character Cara Dune in the TV show.
Great character, strong team. You'd think she's everything the feminists would want, but because one of the things she did wrong was in her Twitter bio she had a choice of more than two genders, and to her defense, she didn't know what the hell was going on. So she just put in like Bebop Boo or something.
Oh, and God.
That started the SJW Twitter mob off. And this has gone on, and now she's facing losing a job. But apparently, Favreau and Filoni are all that stands between her and being fired because of these SJWs.
Right.
Massive civil war going on.
I started watching the CW DC verse. Right. I watched. Have you seen The Arrow?
No, I haven't. Do you know what? I do like those kinds of shows, but I have not.
Well, I'm probably going to save you some time here because
good. Okay, if it's shit.
Season 1 and 2 of The Arrow is amazing, and then you can start to see how the far left is infiltrating into these shows, because then it becomes the Felicity show, not The Arrow. It's about the female character, and unless they're saying they're talking feminist talking points every 5 seconds. They're not happy. Everybody that's got to be gay. Everybody's got to have pronouns and shit.
And they don't get it because, well, no, it's not that they don't get it. They don't care because Wonder Woman 1984 flop. Star Trek Discovery looks like it's been cancelled.
It has, yeah.
And well, the list goes on. The High Republic failure. Every SJ. This is why on Disney Plus they're releasing all these Star Wars episodes. They're bringing in Feige, the guy that got the Marvel movies together, and they're trying to build up towards movies again. But some of these movies are going to be themed the same way, and they're trying to do both at the same time. But these capitalist companies are telling their customers, "You are bigots for not liking what we're putting out. You're all Batman. You're all bigots for not liking what we're putting out, and it's you that needs to change, not us that needs to cater for our demographics." How is this possible?
They don't
How
understand.
is this possible?
They think they're a minority when really they're a minority.
Do you also think that the Hollywood bubble thinks itself above us?
Oh yeah, definitely. Look at the way they preach at people. You know what? Team America World Police predicted this. It was amazing. Well, we just read the newspapers and we just parrot what we read and make it out as if it's our own opinion.
You know how the Romans and Greeks used to view actors, don't you?
No, God enlighten me. This might be something I've learned tonight.
As far as the Romans and the Greeks were concerned, actors were of the same sort of standing as prostitutes.
Right.
So that's kind of the space they occupied in society, which is why when Emperor Nero wanted to and did go out and appear as an actor, it was frowned upon. It was a massive taboo that he broke because, as I said, they were considered to be the prostitutes of their time. And so he broke a big taboo. And it's been mentioned recently by a few people again that actors still really should have that status because this is what happens when they don't.
Well, I got
professional
blocked.
lies.
I was on Twitter and I got blocked by who was it now? Talking ages ago, I got blocked by he's a pretty famous actor. He didn't like what I had to say because he was mouthing off about something, and I said, "You forget your place in society. You're court jesters. You're here to entertain us, not to dictate to us about how we should be ruled or anything like that. That's your place. You're court jesters and nothing more."
Yeah,
and he didn't like it.
I bet he did because it's the fucking truth. You can't argue with the truth. And they know it. They know. I mean, when they go out and make these stupid speeches and that. I mean, I loved what Ricky Gervais did.
Oh God,
you didn't need to be you didn't even need to be a fan of his to appreciate that. And I mean, they really got what they deserved, and they still carried on.
Yeah, but all the fake smiles and all. Oh God, you could see they were hiding the anger behind their faces.
Absolutely. And you know, but that moments like that need to happen, and I've got respect for him for doing it. But I'll tell you what irritated me with Hollywood was the Me Too movement, because they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They were the ones that did wrong, and then went on a quest to tell the rest of us how we should behave. Where was the humility and the sorries and no? They went on to tell the rest of the world how to behave. Like, you all need to catch up. Like, no, you were the ones caught doing it.
It's the whole go woke, go broke situation, isn't it? They forget who pays their wages and who goes to watch their films. It's us, the general public. So don't piss us off. It's a bad idea.
Absolutely. I love this. Nero was a perv. He liked to fiddle with himself in public. But also, I always used to say with Nero that the idea, not with Nero, sorry, with the Romans, everyone always used to say, everyone looks at the Romans in a very sort of simplistic light. Not everybody, a lot of people do, and they say, the Romans burned the Christians. And I always used to disagree with that, because actually it was Nero that burned the Christians. He blamed them for the burning down of Rome, because he was a mad, sadistic fuck. Sorry about my language. But the fact that it was Romans were actually very tolerant of other religions, to the point where that's what partly allowed Christianity to take over. But they were very tolerant of their religions, and always feel that this Christians and lions thing is always overplayed. And I think when I really looked it up, it was something that in the 18th century that the clergy used to rekindle people's spirit in Christianity.
Well, it's to make them a victim, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Don't want to say that, but yeah.
What better way to make people come to your cause if you say, well, we're being persecuted?
Yeah, exactly. So you find out a lot of this comes from the 18th century, you know. I know I've veered straight off. So you said you want to get the truth out there. Okay, that's one thing. As I've learned, I don't know if you're the same, but a lot more people are willing to share secrets with you, even though they know you've got a video channel, which is kind of funny to me because they always say that and they're not. But in all seriousness, how do you plan to get the truth out there? How do you plan to get your hands on the truth? Or is it just about what you see and you know to be true and that you can back up?
It's basically that. It's what I know to be true. I mean, I told you when we first started talking that I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't script my videos. I don't do anything like that. Everything you hear is just straight what I'm thinking at that point in time. There's no script. It's just me commenting on what I think is happening. And I think that's what's sadly lacking on YouTube, because everybody has these nice polished videos. They script everything.
Me and you were very different, but at the same time, there was one thing about us that was very similar, and that is that like when I started, I was really doing a commentary, and I see you as doing that same sort of thing. You're working with what you've got, and it works.
It's just doing what the mainstream media isn't doing.
Yeah,
isn't it? It's like seeing what's happening out in society and saying this is wrong. People shouldn't be doing this, and why aren't you allowing this to happen?
So I'm personally going to test my area in terms of how the fascist police are around here. Bear in mind, they're nothing like they are in London yet. I'm going to go out and probe them. I had someone walk past me the other night and wished my family dead on camera, which is why I went ballistic on camera. First time I've ever done that. Because I was out interviewing people. And I was masked. I was given 2 meters, not because I believe in it, but because of respect of other people's fear. So, and I was in, and he said this to me, and I started walking. I'm glad I had the camera with me, because it stopped me recording myself doing a crime, you know?
Yeah.
I really am glad, because for some reason it just snapped. Because I think what it was he was walking away. He wouldn't back up his comments, and that bothers me. If you want to say something, then stop and say it. Don't say something with that gravitas like of a comment like that and then walk away. You know, so but I just wondered what your opinion is of people like myself going out and saying, I'm going out because I don't recognize the authority for me to be locked down.
That's very much like me. I'm very, very rebellious. And
so you don't think that I'm doing wrong by doing this, in your opinion?
No, I think I think people have to push it. I think they have to test it, because that's how we retain our rights. If we stop doing that, but right, I'll give you a story now, because I had this massive argument on Twitter last night with people, because Tesco is now handing out lanyards to people who are exempt. But I'm saying, why appease them? You're exempt anyway. They have no right to do it. And this is what people do. Instead of like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, I don't want to argue, when really they should argue. They should argue for their rights, and they should stand their ground and say, I'm not moving until you let me in. If you don't let me in, there's going to be consequences for that. I'm firmly behind that. And it's like in the street. It's like when I went to those protests, the Black Lives Matter protests. Nobody ever counter-protested them. It was just me on my own. And I was like, well, I don't care, because they've got to know that there is a voice out there that disagrees with them. If they don't like it, it's tough. They're going to have to deal with it.
I'm actually, although I'm very, I'm very aware of the threat that Black Lives Matter present, I'm also more confident because I know that we have some of the right people who are fully understanding of what they are, what they're about, and hopefully they get the support they need to deal with them, because once they've made the first step, it'll allow the rest of us to really do something. Because you know, the wall again. It's a bit like what you said earlier about stand up against racism. The trick's in the name. The genius is in the name. You know, and we are a not just a nation, but a system. You know, the West of having so little time. We look at the headlines. We look at the name. We judge things so quick. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, they do. You know?
I will say as well, hope not hate. I've got their name round the wrong way. It should be hate not hope.
I've always said that's true, 100%, and they really are. Yeah. And they tell people on their sites, "I've looked. You probably have as well." They tell them it's for charitable causes, but what they don't tell them is it's for fighting in the streets.
Yeah,
it's they word it in a certain way.
Well, this is why I know this is probably going to seem a bit callous or a bit petty, but this is why I did it. Stand Up to Racism was having like a fundraising drive for refugees in Calais, right? Nothing wrong with that at all, in my opinion. If you want to give, that's people's freedom. They can give stuff and they can go to those people if they really want to. My issue was why are you virtue signaling about it? Why do you have to tell people that you're doing it? If you're just going to do it, do it. Don't go on your big bandstand and get on microphone. Look how good we are. This is middle class people just virtue signaling about how good. And that's why I went to counter protest them. They said, "What are you doing here? We're doing a good thing." And I just said, the reason I'm doing it is because just do it. Why do you need to tell people that you're doing it?
That's right. That's right. So this is what I was going to come on to. So for me, for anybody that doesn't know Dave, you know, again, if I say I've been watching him for a while, I haven't watched every video, and also that sounds a bit creepy, but I can honestly say that's what's come across, is that there's no glory hunting for you.
No.
You don't build a channel up that many times for glory, because it'd be beaten out of you. So is it fair for me to say that even though all that's true, surely you want a bigger channel if you want to get these points out? Because you're doing pretty well, considering. Yeah. I mean, you keep getting knocked down and you keep coming back. And good numbers.
I'd be lying if I say I didn't want a bigger channel, because I do. Yeah. Not because of vanity or because I want to be famous. It's just so I can get the word out to more people. That's it.
And this is what people need to understand. When you find genuine people, and there are genuine people, they want bigger channels. Yes. They want views and clicks. Yes. Because they're trying to spread an opinion and a message. So the best way to do that is to. So the thing is, like, what matters to me, just so you know, there's something on the YouTube, if you're not a creator, it's called retention ratio. It's how long people are watching your videos for.
Yeah.
It's the most important number. Because if I get 10,000 views on a video, but everybody's watching for 10 seconds and it's an 8-minute video, it sucked. So it's not about going, oh, loads of people have watched the video or whatever else. It's about going, well, if that was a good message, it got out. You know? And let people make of it what they will.
I think that one of my most successful videos had about 200,000 views on it.
Wow.
And for a little channel like mine, that's amazing.
It is, yeah.
But I think it's because of that. I think that's what first got me noticed, because of that. And I think that's when the throttling started to happen. I didn't realise it was happening.
I think the only video I've released off my own back, I could be wrong about this, but because I have to separate, you see, because a lot of people have criticised me for this, but I never used to upload Tommy videos, and then somebody asked me one day, and I just felt like while he was being censored, we should get him out. And that censorship never stopped, so I never stopped. So I put his videos out. So I have to break my analytics in half, because I won't monetize his videos, for instance, and I can't take the numbers from them. So when I look at what I've done, I think the video that got out to the most was about 10,000. I could be wrong. And I could have been. Don't get me wrong. Demo videos got out. I don't know. We've had some that got out to a massive crowd, but I'm talking about stuff that was purely of my own making. It wasn't a demo. It wasn't, it wasn't an event.
Yeah.
And I think it's only been about 10,000 people, but it's like, well, did the message get across? I suppose that's the most important thing, because then it'll be shared, and so I think most of us feel, I don't know how you feel on this, I think most of us feel that if we can help in some way, at least one person, it's kind of worth it.
I think that, I don't know if you're around, but it really killed off the YouTube community, because at one time everybody used to be giving everybody else shout outs. We're saying, look at this new YouTuber, look at that new YouTuber. But I think when things got monetized and people had to be in competition with each other, that stopped.
The problem, I mean, I've got no problem with healthy competition. There's capitalism, but what happened was you had a group of YouTubers that were in an elite position, and they were frightened to lose it.
Yeah.
And so the term PayPal Patriots came up, which was unfortunate, because what they didn't realize was they're undoing themselves at the same time in a world where trust isn't abundant. And then you had a series of events where they were proved right, because you had people that actually did rip them off.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, when you've got false accusations like against me, which we've proven to be false, where you know, it just lowers people's trust down and down and down and down. And I think that a lot of the community, we've done it to ourselves. You know, that you're so right in that it was always about giving each other. This is why I've reached out to you, because I always wanted to do this, but it's so we're in factions. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that killed off community on YouTube was a stopping of being able to post video responses to the actual video. That used to be a great little feature. Little feature. Because even if you didn't agree with the videos, you were giving people an opportunity to have their say. Because some things you can't say in a comment, you need to have a video response to it. Agree, and I need to remember this as well when I'm in certain conversations, because I've always wanted, you know, we've had some higher profile guests on it, but I've always wanted it to be a show for everybody. So, you know, I need to stick the link out there a little bit more and let people keep coming on, because, you know, it's all right giving a voice to higher profile people, and, you know, I like that. It's good for the show, it's good for the audience, but what's also good is for average people to have their say. Well, that's what I used to do in my Hangouts when I had the other channel. I dropped the link in the chat and said, right, if you've got something to say, just come in and say it. And half the time, a lot of people are very conscious about coming on camera. But I said, you don't have to show your face. Just do what I'm doing right now.
Yes, yeah. And you're kind of creating, I don't want to use the word safe space because you know what that entails, but you are kind of creating a space for them to feel comfortable in, aren't you?
Yeah. And I said, I'm not going to bite. You know, you're going to get fair airtime to air your views. Just come and, if you disagree with me, because I like to be challenged on what I'm saying. If I'm wrong, I'll change my opinion.
You're another person. I was talking to Danny Roscoe about this, about debates, and one of the reasons why I don't do very many debates is simply that I have not seen a good working class debate on YouTube. Not one. I've seen some pretty funny, dramatic arguments and silly insults, but I've never seen a decent debate, not one.
Well,
so go on.
That's the thing about the far left, though, that they won't come because they know they haven't got anything. They know they haven't got any kind of argument that could.
Douglas Murray always said that the reason they're on the attack so much is because they're in an indefensible position. So it's the only tactic they can take.
Yeah, I mean, their main form of attack is censorship. That's it. That's all they've got. They haven't got any arguments to back up what they're actually saying. Because if they want to talk about communism and socialism, we've got a history of where it's failed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can prove that it fails.
But they've got the very arrogance of people like Orwell and that Warm Dog, and that is this right. So this is a bit of a psychological thing, and I don't want to go too into it now, but. Because people get very upset, even on our side, about this. And it's like, if you were a German and a soldier and a good one during the war, the chances are you would have ended up being a Nazi.
Yeah, because a
lot of people cannot handle that.
Right, I want to get into this, right, because a lot of the Wehrmacht, you know, the German army, they were dead against Hitler. The only reason that they went along with him is because they were scared for their families' lives. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, majority of them were just nasty pieces of work. Yeah, they were. But there were German soldiers in there that went along with it because,
of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the first country the Nazis invaded was Germany.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that sorry, I'm a little bit off where I was going actually.
Throw you off a little bit.
Yeah, it did throw me off a little bit because not because it was a curveball, because it just got me thinking about I'm always doing this mid interview stuff because I like the idea that it's very difficult because I'm always thinking about I've got to look at the comments, got to make sure the camera and all this other bullshit. So it's hard to always take in everything that someone's saying, but I have this conversation so that they make me think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be made to think, and so we were talking about why were we talking about the Nazis?
You were talking about because some German soldiers were actually good people, and they probably were. They were just in the German army, and they took it upon themselves that the person who was in command at the time is in command of the army. That's the way they looked at it.
Yeah, no, there was a different point I was coming to, but I've lost it. So bollocks. We'll leave it there. It'll come back to me if it was worth talking about. So what's the future? And obviously, like so you've just said, which actually is a refreshing thing to hear. Yes, I would ideally like a bigger channel, and we already know it's not for ego. And one of the reasons I kind of wanted you on because I agree. I agreed before I asked you the question. That's why I asked it. So I would invite anybody. You know, these days I don't recommend many channels. I always try and recommend anybody I believe just to be straight, because at the end of the day, that's all anybody can be, and it's up to you to decide whether you like them or not. But you did it with Danny Roscoe. You've done it with other people. Go and give Vindicator a try, because it takes a lot to keep building. He's making this simple, but it takes a lot to keep building these channels up, and he keeps doing it. And you can hear from talking today. He's not a guy that sits and holds back and says, "Oh, I don't want to upset any," And so, and I believe that he does a lot of good. So please go over it, and I can say that if you don't like it on the ticker, the link is in the description. Please go over and give him a sub. So you can always unsub if you do not like the content. So give it a go. So there's no harm for anyone, is it? So do you I know that you're on Gab there. Do you ever put it out on any other social media when you're going live or anything like that? How do you structure things? Because the reason I asked is because we talked earlier on about the lack of notifications and things.
Me personally, I started using Rumble a lot more than probably BitChute, because BitChute has issues with some videos that I've...
Sorry.
Yeah, it's been really hit and miss, BitChute, really.
Yeah, they've changed, haven't they?
Yeah. Although I will say this for them, they actually do allow comments underneath the videos now, which is pretty good. But
yeah, it's not that. I don't know if you saw the hospitals video we released, I say we released. It was given a strike on YouTube, and it was removed from BitChute, to my shock. They seem to be removing videos all of a sudden, which I didn't expect from them.
So I don't like putting PayPal things or anything like that. The way you can help out my channel is just by watching my videos on Rumble, because it automatically gets monetized. Right. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to donate. It's just you watching my content helps my channel.
Right. And that link is in the description. Now, like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, and Dave, you tell me if I'm wrong here. Even if you're doing a reasonably minimal amount, like when you went to the demos, you may have found this. I have to have multiple SIM cards. I have to have power banks, things like this. And you can do that on a low budget.
I did it on a phone.
But you are paying to do it. You are paying to make your podcast, aren't you? Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. And that's not to bring money to the forefront. You've just said it. The biggest way of supporting you is to watch you. Yeah, exactly. So, and the Rumble link is in the description, ladies and gentlemen. So just to be clear, for anybody that would like a soundbite, Dave is not asking for money. He's asking to watch on that particular platform because they were earning money. And I that's always what I wanted, was to be able to make money out of the platform, not out of the people.
Exactly.
Not make money, but to pay for my show doing it. And I'm sure that's what you're trying to do there, Dave, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, eventually, it's like it's all going to get reinvested into better equipment, so I can make it a bit more polished, if you know what I mean.
I think we're a bit similar in this, because this is what we do. It's a recycling method, and just keep, and we've actually, admittedly with an injection of cash from me, we've managed to get pretty much where we want to be with equipment. But it's taken the best part of 2.5 years,
Yeah, well, that's what I was working towards on my last channel, and then obviously that's why I'm a bit dubious about building up a following on YouTube, because they're so quick to take it away.
Why not? And I'm only offering suggestion, right? I don't know you that well, but why not do what we were talking about earlier on, which is self-censor a little, invent other words that everybody will understand, whatever you got to do. But use it as a roadmap, because the way I look at it is this, right? I know for a fact that, and I couldn't give you a percentage, but I know for a fact that a large number of people won't go to other platforms, especially permanently, and they will go to YouTube while it's still there. And that's why I want YouTube to throw us all off at once, because that will change the whole game.
Yeah.
With that said, when you're giving a link to people to another channel that's not YouTube, you'd be lucky if 10% go.
Yeah.
So, but 10% is 10%. So the way I look at it is, perhaps is it not a good idea to get a following on YouTube, to try and do what you can to stay, and let me put it this way: I received 1 strike in the whole time I've been on it, and that was a mistake I knew I'd made, and that's been cleared off. So I got a clean channel. And it's not that I'm totally politically correct. It's just certain games you can play. And it does mean that I've got a channel here where I can go, right, here's a link to BitChute. If you want to see it, here's a link to Telegram. If you want to see it. Yeah. Is it not worth doing that, Dave? Or is it just that you feel too compromised to do that?
I think you're right. And I think sometimes my bluntness is my own worst enemy sometimes, because I've never sugarcoated anything in my life. And maybe if I want to get the truth out there, I might have to sacrifice a little bit.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't know where the right or wrong is. I could be a hypocrite in all this,
Well, I think you're right. I think maybe substitute different words, so it's still got the same meaning, but it's not going to hit the algorithm or the bots or the AI.
Yeah. I just feel like it's a game. I just feel like we've got to play the game until, and then I really say until, because I'm really hoping we don't need to anymore, because we can just move to a platform where the majority go.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's what will happen. But I'm just wondering till then, whether it's a case of playing the game, mate, because I do believe we need voices like yours. You call it as you see it. And one thing as well that I haven't seen from you is that you say, I speak the truth, speak my mind, but you never say I'm always right. You just say, I'm offering this.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's like I can offer a platform where people can come and disagree with me, or other people can come to my platform and disagree with each other. And that's how things come out into the open. Different ideas are born in that environment. Try and do what YouTube isn't doing, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
absolutely. If you look at Kaylee here, who's got Umbrella Grape Solutions. Now, you could call some of her videos controversial, and YouTube's got a real hard-on for the global bastard. But she, along with many other people, has a shocking rate of video takedowns and stuff. And, I mean, the one that got taken down recently, okay, it was footage of hospitals. But it wasn't making any claims. It wasn't making any claims.
Just footage.
It was just observation.
Yeah.
And when you think of some things that are like, it's just, it's just so wrong. It doesn't matter if she's wrong. It doesn't matter if she's wrong. It doesn't matter if anybody's wrong. Surely an opinion and criticism is what we're all about.
Have you seen Jack Dorsey's what Project Veritas released about him, about the when he thought he was in a private conversation? with some
Say
of
that
his.
again. Say that again. Sorry.
Do you know about Project Veritas, surely, and the stuff that they've been
I've
doing?
heard of it, but I might need a bit of a refresh because the name.
They're basically a news network that just whistleblows everything, and
Right. Veritas. I know that. Yeah.
yeah, they managed to infiltrate one of their people into the close circle of Jack Dorsey, Twitter, and
Right.
they caught him on video saying what his true intentions were to censor politically, and it's just a proper gotcha moment where you can't deny that, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, go on.
I was going to say, did you see Steven Crowder when he caught YouTube messing around with their algorithms locally? By locally, I mean in America, and giving them different results about electoral candidates than they were to the rest of the world. You could find out more in Norway about the American elections than you could in America.
Oh, well, we all know
Totally
about
exposed them.
we all know about the collusion between Silicon Valley. I mean, look at Tony Robinson. Every one of his social media accounts went more or less down one after the other. And if that wasn't collusion, what wasn't evidence of collusion between them all? I don't know what was.
Absolutely. I think they're saying, I'm not sure if I'm following the story right, but I think they're saying that they believe, and I don't know how this is quite possible, that Facebook is behind a lot of the decisions to censor people very recently on other platforms, which I don't quite understand. But Facebook are facing being broken up as a monopoly. So I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, I think, what did I see the other day? Was it Facebook have lost 54 billion off their share value since they blocked Trump, and that they reinstated him. They reinstated Trump's channel on Facebook because they were losing so much in advertising because people just like that's it, we're done.
I know that when they tried to push politics on Facebook in 2017, I think it was, they lost 40% of their younger audience overnight. But all of these companies keep putting politics before profit. I mean, what is MasterCard, PayPal, or any of those companies doing? Going off their own volition and blocking people from using their services who are not terrorists or anything of the such. The
far left might be a minority, but they're in very key positions. They've been playing chess for a long time, putting people in key positions, in important positions, and this is how they're winning the game. Look at our media. It's not overrun with far left people. It's just the people at the top dictating what the narrative is going to be, and that has to change. We have to change that somehow. I had great hope for Andrew Neil and his new broadcast, but it's going to be more of the same. It's just going to be mainstream media light, isn't it? Really?
Probably. I think we need. I mean, if Parler makes it, it could be groundbreaking because it will mean that you can start small and not beat these people, but compete with these people. Because what's happening with Parler is totally predictable. It was predicted years ago, and that is that if you try and open up a alternate media and you don't have the kind of money and power, then they will tear you down. And see, the thing is about Parler, I don't know. It's worth it. I think it was on one of my very last videos. I put a link to Ben Shapiro's show, and it wasn't anything he said. He was talking to, I don't know if she was a spokeswoman or what she was, but she was talking about it all. And one of the reasons they got taken down, it wasn't that they weren't prepared to take down insightful comments or anything like that. What it was that Parler felt that using algorithms was not only just sloppy, but a way of infringing on people's privacy, which I completely and utterly agree with. And what they said was they were prepared to take all the measures necessary to stop, wrong speech on their channel, as in incitement, stuff like that. But they would prefer to do it the way they would do it with a jury of peers. So it's fair.
I think the lesson that these startup companies need to learn is to build their infrastructure first and then go live. Get your own servers first.
Yeah.
Before you go live with your company.
It's difficult though, even getting your own servers. I mean,
but
what I don't understand.
But maybe this is where Donald Trump could step in.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing as well is, and I don't want to say too much because it will tip people off. But I don't understand why things like seed boxes are not used more, because I was able to do the impossible with them. They're still available now. Get them in Russia, get them in all kinds of countries. They're completely legal. And nobody can take your content down for any reason unless you're inciting violence. And even then, the likelihood of it even being noticed is negligible. And yet, you have an audience of the entire planet.
Yeah.
That's what you've got with a torrent file and a seed box, and it's not illegal.
That's something else we've got in common as well. I use Pirate Bay too. I happily admit that. I use Pirate Bay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of people from my generation did. And these seed boxes, I mean, one of them I paid, again, I don't want to say too much, but one of them I paid $7.99 a month for. And I could do a gigabyte a second uploads without it coming from my machine. I did one upload from my machine to the seed box for the original file.
Yeah.
But because I had done a certain thing, it meant that was the only upload I needed to do, and I was doing it via VPN. That seed box then took over and served millions. And Popcorn, I'd really got to be careful going too far, but Popcorn Time showed that you can then put an interface to torrents. That's one of the key things right there, because all you can do with sites like that is blockade them, but you can't necessarily stop them if they're in the right place. And if they, I mean, there's a lot more goes into it than I can say on here, but yeah, the text there now. But if you had someone with the power, like you said, Trump stepped out and did something like this, you could protect this kind of network.
Trump could build his own server center.
He could.
A massive server center.
He's got a 70 million support?
Yeah.
Just in his own country.
And plus he's a billionaire. So he's got the money. He's got the money behind him to do it.
I think it'd be a great idea.
I secretly, and this is just my speculation, not because I think he's pumped some money into Gab as well.
Right.
I think he's pumped some money into there already.
What makes you say that?
It's just a suspicion that I've got. You know how sometimes you get a hunch, you think, because he's got pretty close ties to them. And, you know, they saved his Twitter account.
Right.
And just uploaded it verbatim to their site. It's as it was on Twitter.
Right.
It's like you don't really do that unless someone else has done you a favour before. They might have just done it out of They might have just done it out of the kindness of their heart. I don't know. I might be wrong about that. But I hear
what you're saying. That does make some plausible sense. It's interesting. So if you was to
ask yourself a question, right? What's the best way to get back at all these sites that have been attacking you than to pump money into their opposition?
Oh, great.
It's definitely.
Sorry, go on. Have I?
Did you go off?
No, I think we're okay. Sorry. Yeah. No. I agree. And I think this would be his best bet at the moment, because it would do some real lasting good as well. And we need it. I say to people, they criticize me for it, but I say, not only we're on the losing side, and we are losing.
So,
and
I mean, look at what's happened in the world, right? How this has all happened. What's the first thing you do if you want to take over a society? You control their education. Then you set yourself as the moral arbitrator of everything, and then you take control of the media to set the narrative. on everything. And that's exactly what's happened in this country and other countries all over the Western world, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I just noticed a comment by my one of my mods, Bolton. What is it I can't talk about on YouTube now? They've changed the terms and conditions, Bolton. If you can say it. Ridiculous. Have you noticed as a creator, by the way, Vindicator, that you now can have your own comments censored and there's nothing you can do about it on your own channel?
Yeah.
I've been censored on my own channel now. It's incredible. And you can know anything to do with streaming or pirate. Oh Jesus. This is what I mean. This is what I mean. When I hear that, right. When I hear that, I want to go back on everything I've just said. Because it boils my piss, as to borrow a phrase I heard from someone that made me laugh once, but it does, because hang on, sorry.
I know what you mean, because this is exactly why and what made me want to just chuck the towel in.
Yeah.
And
I can understand why. It's just soul destroying. It's just, well, what do you want us to talk about? The Care Bears. This is just insane.
It's like Big Brother's watching all the time, isn't it? It's like you can't say that.
Do you know what I did when I was on Twitter and they started all this? I started posting serial numbers to every Microsoft product there was every year, Photoshop, everything. And they didn't take me down. It took 2 years to get taken down. It's incredible. But Bolton said he'll send me a link after, so I'll have a look at the link. But this is historical, what I'm talking about with the piracy and stuff. To find that it's a topic you can't talk about, F off. I can understand why you were disillusioned, because I hear stuff like that and I'm just like, are you kidding me? I mean, you can't talk about the global bastard. You can't have images glorifying war, whatever the hell that means. You can't offend people who come to your channel rather than avoid it.
No, but if you're a part of the far left media, you can have pictures of mostly peaceful protests on your channels of like cities burning in flames.
Yeah. Of police being chased down the street, running for their fucking lives. Sorry for my language. Sorry. It just makes me so angry. Because there's a limit for me. It's like I'm saying use this as a roadmap, and I mean it. But there's a limit for me, and I said this, where I'm just going to snap, and I'm just going to say whatever I want anyway, because it's how I am. And I try and be as authentic on here as possible. The trouble is that clashes with what they're trying to do. Does that make sense?
I'll tell you what needs to happen, right? Rumble and other sites need to develop a streaming port on their sites, because once that happens, YouTube will die. Because once you can go to another site and stream from it, then people are going to do that, because you can have no issues with censorship or anything like that.
We need one site above all the others, and what we could really do with is a YouTube purge. And what I mean by purge is YouTube needs to get rid of us all in one day. If they did that, it would be to our benefit, because somewhere else would grow up overnight, and it would go above the others, and people would flock to it.
Well, that's actually happening to Gab right now. But right. Twitter's dying, and Gab is now gaining all their traffic. It's happening on Gab.
This is what we need, and this is what I keep forgetting to tell people, by the way. So I've put in Vindicator's details today. Let me just check something. Oh, I can't check at the moment. I think I'm right in saying that even if I may have got a couple of the channel names wrong, because I've been renaming stuff, in the description under my videos, I'm trying to make sure that the first link that you see is the Parachute channel link. It is literally that. It's on a different, I don't want to say it too much, it's a different account, and why it may get stopped, there's also a chance that I can hop over there. Every time I do a live, I broadcast to that channel as well. I don't know if it's got any subscribers on, or I haven't even looked. But the point of it being is, if I disappear, one of the first places to look is there. The other thing is, what I've also listed is where else you can find me, whether it's VK, Telegram, everything else. So if I disappear, you can find me. The other thing is, what I will be doing is tying it all together very soon. I couldn't work out website or not because of the effort involved. And I made a decision the other night after phoning the company, and they offered me a ridiculous offer. I was like, okay, fine. So there will be one domain name that will then give you anywhere that I am, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. So
I tried. I
yeah,
did try dlive, but I had nothing but issues with that.
yeah. I've heard good things, but I just feel look. It looks like what it is, a gamers platform, and I don't know. It's just not an interface I'm very amused with.
I tried to
Yeah,
use.
I just don't.
I tried to use it through OBS, and it was just you can't do it on a laptop. You need a desktop computer with like 2 screens to do it because
Yeah,
there's bits you need to sort out behind the scenes while you look at the live to see how it looks, and you just can't do it on one screen. It's impossible.
absolutely, absolutely understand that. Yeah, I've been sort of playing around at the moment. It's like I've got the equipment I need now. The computer's red hot. I've got the graphics card. I need everything, but it's now just arranging it to get the absolute best result. So having a little play, but it matters. And Danny Roscoe hit this. You know, people have said to me about, you know, why are you so worried about making good videos? And it's like, because they feel like it's the content, not the quality that matters. I get that, but it's like, I think Danny Roscoe encapsulated it better than I could say it. When you make something that's a bit like a documentary and it's got that professional edge, it's timeless, and people will refer back to it. They'll use it. It is timeless, and that is. I couldn't search the words, but he took them out of my mouth. That is exactly it. You make something of quality, which does take time, unfortunately. This is why I get so frustrated with the criticisms of Tommy with the documentaries. It's like the only mistake Tommy ever made was announcing them, in as much as probably because he'd not made them before, he didn't know just how pear-shaped things can go. Just trying to make a document. I mean, they are probably harder than writing a book.
I agree with that. I think what he should have done was like do one, release it, don't announce the next one until you've actually done it and it's ready to go.
I understand what he did. It's the excitement. It's and at that moment you don't see the obstacles, but they just come out of nowhere, or facts change. And then you've got to be legally checked. It's a nightmare. And I know this from my own kind of experience. And it's so when I hear of people like moaning about it and stuff like that, I'm thinking, look, if he had done a documentary in 3 months, I would have been really disappointed because I would have already known what I was seeing on the screen would have been a disappointment. I would have known that. The only way you do a documentary properly is by taking your time and getting it right. And if he spends 3 years getting things right, but he comes out with these things, I'll be happier because I know that it's the best that it could be, and that it's really been thought about. So I'm all for it taking the time that it needs to take. This is how long documentaries take to make. You know?
I mean, some people could spend 10 years. 10 years perfect.
Right, exactly. There's very few projects that are done in like a year. And there's certainly none that are done in months. And then add to that is the most sensitive, most sort of bothered man, let's put it that way, harassed man in Britain. I mean, that adds a whole new telltale to it as well.
Oh yeah, I saw lots of people complain saying, well, you stole the money, you've not produced a documentary. He was in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like maybe he had to use those funds for other things, like his defence.
This is the thing: is I question with people. It's like, you know, some people, a lot of people, when they give, the message they give to me is, you spend it on what you want. Yeah, this is for your time. This is what a lot of the messages are, and it's like I've always said the money that we get goes back on the podcast. So it's like, if for some reason I can't make A, then I'm obviously got a pot of money there where I don't distinguish which bit of money came from where. It's just a pot.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next time something comes up where I can do some good, that's where the money's going to go.
Yeah, don't
and
forget,
so on
right,
and so on.
Let's not forget, Tom Robinson is not exactly going to be able to hold down a job anywhere
No,
in the UK,
exactly. And then you go to the point of, well, what happens when that pot of money runs out? That's when you start paying out your own pocket.
Yeah.
Something that none of us go on about because we're not asking for money. The point of it being is that's where it ends up coming out of your own pocket. It's got to be a labour of love or a labour of passion at least. The funny things I've heard said about how much money people think that we make on it. Maybe some do. But we're not covering Star Wars, so
yeah. Unless you've got over 1 million subscribers, then you're pretty much not going to make hardly anything. If you've got 1 million subscribers, then you might do even 500,000. But
yeah, I'd say there are less numbers that can make money. Only based on chat, but they still need to be pretty big damn numbers.
I mean,
you need to be producing content that's not being demonetized all the time.
When I first started out on YouTube, if you didn't have 100 subscribers, you were classed as a small channel, and a big channel back then was classed as probably having 40,000 subscribers. That whole dynamic has changed now. Now, if you've got 40,000 subscribers, you're classed as a small channel.
Right. It's funny you say that because in 2015, when Zero News was conceptualized, I decided back then that I needed exactly 35,000 viewers, 35,000 subs, whatever, to have a medium-sized successful channel that could then hope to go on to gain more.
Yeah.
And it's funny what you say, because in that time that's changed, and I now realise I need something more closer to 100,000.
Yeah, and then you've got to factor in that probably half your subs will never watch your videos again. They'll sub
100%. When we were a young channel, I was really proud because we would have, like, I don't know, compared to channels like 10 times our size, we would have something like 60 to 80% of our subs watching our videos. And then after all the drama that happened last year, that sort of broke all that up, and that kind of stopped happening. So you see, what you're saying is right. We get, and this is what's frustrating about getting people to subscribe. We at the moment, I think, get because I haven't checked it most recently, somewhere between 70 to 85% of our views from non-subscribers.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to remember is it's not subscribers, it's views on your video that count. It really is. So it's like what you were talking about before. If you can make a really good polished video and lots of people watch it, that's how you've got to do it. It doesn't matter about subscribers.
As I said to you before, the retention ratio is a massive thing, because if people are watching the whole video, then not only have you got your message across to them, they're engaged. The likelihood of them sharing that goes up exponentially.
Yeah.
Because if they've been gripped from beginning to end, it's something they're going to want to share.
Getting back to the COVID. Oh, sorry, I was mentioning it. The bastard virus.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Getting back to that, I was seeing a stat going around on Twitter yesterday, and I investigated it a little bit. It was saying that 85% of the British public support lockdown. And then I looked into the actual size of the study, because that's the most important thing you've got to look at. It was just over 4,000 people. And it's like, how can that represent the British public when it's just 4,000 people? A country of over, was it 68 million people now?
I saw one yesterday for Sky, and it was 330 odd people.
Yeah, and it's like, how can you use that stat as...
How can you call it a credible stat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's insane. Listen, I don't really want to end this conversation with you, but we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I know that people are going to get... So do you fancy doing a part 2 sometime?
Definitely. I'm definitely up for that. Yeah, definitely.
I've enjoyed the conversation. I'm sorry if I've cut you off or jumped in at times. I'm just so curious obviously because we haven't really spoke much offline, have we? So online,
No.
sorry. So yeah. So sorry if I've cut you off at any points, but
No, that's great. I'm sorry if I've interrupted.
no, not at all. So if you're up for it, we'll do a part 2 over the next few days or whatever, and we'll carry on finding out a bit more about you, bud.
Definitely, mate. Yeah, really up for that. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on anyway. Yeah, appreciate it.
Listen, thanks for being so accommodating. You know, people know I can be a bit unreliable, and like, you know, it was sort of spur of the moment tonight. I felt everything I'd finally got things to go right because I've been fighting against a few things the last few days. So it was last minute, and you were like, "Yeah, all right." no, you know. So I really appreciate you being so accommodating. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Anytime, mate. No problem. It's been a good chat. I've enjoyed it. We've gone through
It definitely has. Has anybody got any questions of Vindicator before we go? I know it's getting late, so part 2. Someone says, yeah, part 2. I'll give you a couple of seconds because I know it takes a little while to come through. But yeah, because this is obviously when I'm doing an interview, I don't get as much chance to look at the comments, but I do want to offer you the last word if you want it. But I appreciate you may be too tired. So, hey, Busker. And Dave, have you got any final message or anything you want to plug or anything at all other than V?
I think my most important bit of advice to anybody who's watching this is do your own research. Don't take anything, even us, don't take anything that we say as gospel truth. Do your own research, think for yourselves, and just wake up, really.
I agree with that. Don't even trust us to the point of blind. You know, take what we're saying and then go and check it out.
I did want to say something. I think the reason why we have a society nowadays.
Thank you. That's really kind. Sorry. Thank you.
I think the reason why we've got a society nowadays is because critical thinking hasn't been implemented in schools anymore. They're not told they're told how to think and not how to question things anymore. I think that's why a big thing as well. So just want to say that. No,
I totally agree with you. Just bear with me 1 second, my friend. I did put it in the description, but I will put it in the I put it in the chat now. 1 second. Or is that going to show me the whole thing? Hang on a second. Bear with me. Copy and get that out in the chat. Paste and go. Well, thank you for joining me, Dave. Really do appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to run a slow outro so you guys have got a chance to take that link. And remember, all Dave's links are in the description for this video. And remember, my parachute channels are also in the links for this video. We will do a part 2. We'll let you know when it is. It will probably be scheduled. Thanks for joining me, Dave. We'll see you for part 2.
Thanks for me on, mate. Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you.
Take care, mate. I'll see you next time.
Okay, mate. See you later. Bye.